You're opening a coffee shop? Really, Alex? My brother Tyler said it like I'd announced I was joining a circus. The whole family sat around my parents' dining table for Sunday dinner, and every eye turned toward me. It's not just a coffee shop, I said quietly. It's a specialty cafe with local sourcing, and it'll fail in 6 months, my father interrupted, cutting his steak with precise movements. 90% of restaurants fail in the first year. You're throwing away a stable career for a fantasy. My mother touched my father's arm gently. What your father means is we're concerned. You have a good job, benefits, security. Why risk everything? Tyler leaned back in his chair, smirking. Because Alex thinks being an entrepreneur sounds cooler than having a real job, right? My younger sister Melissa laughed. Not mean exactly, just dismissive. I was 26 years old, sitting at a table with people who should have supported me, and I felt smaller than I had in years. I've done the research, I said. I have a business plan. I've secured funding. With what money? My father asked sharply. My savings and a business loan. The silence that followed felt like judgment. Tyler laughed. This is going to be entertaining to watch. The mockery had started 3 months earlier when I first mentioned the idea. We'd been at Tyler's house for his birthday party. He worked in finance at a prestigious firm, made excellent money, lived in a sleek downtown condo. Everything my parents valued. I'd mentioned I was thinking about opening my own business. Tyler had laughed immediately. Doing what? Selling homemade crafts on the internet. No, a specialty cafe. There's a gap in the market for. Everyone thinks there's a gap, my father had interrupted. That's not how business works. The market doesn't care what you think. My mother had been gentler, but no less discouraging. Honey, starting a business is incredibly risky. What if it fails? You'd lose everything you've worked for. Melissa, who was 23 and still living at home rent-free, had added. My roommate's cousin tried opening a restaurant. Lost like $60,000. That would be so stupid. I'd stopped talking about it after that evening. But I hadn't stopped planning. I'd spent 4 years at a marketing firm, saving aggressively. I lived in a tiny apartment with one roommate. I drove a 15-year-old Honda. No vacations. No expensive dinners. No shopping sprees. I had $53,000 saved, plus a small business loan for $70,000 more. I'd already found a location and signed the lease. You haven't even thought this through, my father said at that Sunday dinner. Do you know what commercial rent costs? Equipment? Inventory? Labor? Yes, I said. It's all in my business plan. I pulled out a folder from my bag. 40 pages. Market analysis. Financial projections. Competitor research. Everything. I placed it on the table. My father glanced at it but didn't pick it up. A document doesn't guarantee success. Tyler reached across and flipped it open mockingly. Revenue projections for year 1, $85,000. He laughed. That's adorable. It's conservative, I said. It's delusional, he corrected. My mother sighed. Alex, we're just trying to protect you. You're making an impulsive decision that could ruin your financial future. I've been planning this for 2 years, I said. Exactly, my father replied. 2 years of wasting mental energy on a pipe dream instead of focusing on career advancement at your actual job. Melissa scrolled through her phone, barely listening. Can we talk about something else? This is depressing. I folded the business plan neatly. Once. Twice. My chest burned, but my hand stayed steady. That was the last time I asked for their approval. The dinner had been a setup. I realized that driving home. My mother had called 2 days earlier. Why don't you come for Sunday dinner? Share your exciting news with everyone. I thought she meant supportive family celebration. Instead, it was an intervention. My father had already told my uncle I was making a huge mistake. My aunt had been briefed to offer realistic perspective. Tyler had been primed to play the voice of reason. They'd planned to embarrass me into backing down, to scare me with statistics and judgment until I apologized and returned to my safe marketing job like a good daughter. I sat in my car in their driveway for 10 minutes after leaving, hands gripping the steering wheel. I didn't cry. I just repeated one sentence in my head over and over. Build it anyway. The mockery wasn't a reflection of my plan. It was a reflection of their fear. They needed me to fail so their own safe choices felt validated. The next morning, I went to the county clerk's office and registered the business officially. Brewhaven LLC. It was real now. The cafe opened 3 months later on a cold Tuesday morning in November. I'd worked 16-hour days to get ready, painting walls, installing equipment, training my 2 part-time employees, perfecting recipes. The grand opening was small. A few friends showed up, some neighbors, a handful of curious locals. My family didn't come. Tyler had texted the night before. Good luck with your little hobby. My parents sent nothing. The first day, we made $217 in revenue. After expenses, that was maybe $40 in actual profit. I went home exhausted and checked my phone. The family group chat had 3 new messages. Tyler, so how was the big day? Millionaire yet? Melissa, did anyone even show up LOL? My father had liked both messages. I muted the chat. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling and wondering if they were right. If I'd made a catastrophic mistake. Then my phone buzzed. A 5-star review on Google from someone I'd never met. Best coffee in the city. Owner clearly cares about quality. Will be back daily. I screenshot it and saved it to a folder labeled proof. The first 6 months were brutal. Revenue was inconsistent. Some days we'd make $400. Other days barely $100. I worked the cafe during the day and did freelance marketing work at night to cover my personal expenses. Sleep became optional. Social life became non-existent. My friends stopped inviting me places because I always said no. But slowly, steadily, things improved. Regular customers started appearing. The morning coffee crowd. The afternoon laptop workers. The weekend brunch families. I learned their names, their orders, their lives. I adjusted the menu based on what sold. I experimented with seasonal drinks. I hosted a local artist's work on the walls. The cafe started feeling less like a business and more like a community space. By month 7, we were breaking even most weeks. By month 9, we were consistently profitable. Not making me rich, but covering expenses with enough left over to pay myself a modest salary. The family group chat continued its commentary. Tyler, still in business? Impressive. My aunt, when are you going back to a real job? I never responded. I just kept working. One morning, a food blogger came in and posted about us. Her review went viral locally. The next week, our revenue doubled. Year 2 was when things shifted. I hired 2 more employees, expanded the menu, started offering catering for local businesses. Revenue grew from $8,000 a month to $15,000, then $20,000. I reinvested everything. Better equipment, professional branding, a loyalty program. I attended small business workshops, learned about marketing, about operations, about scaling. The cafe won a local Best New Business award from the Chamber of Commerce. The local newspaper did a feature article. My photo was on page 3 of the business section. Local entrepreneur builds thriving cafe against the odds. I framed it and hung it in my apartment. My phone started buzzing with messages from family members. My aunt saw your article. So proud of you. My mother. The cafe looks lovely in the photos. Tyler, congrats on the press. Not one of them had visited in 18 months. Not one of them had apologized for the mockery. I responded politely to each message with a simple thank you and nothing more. I didn't need their validation anymore. But the irony wasn't lost on me. When I was struggling, they'd been silent. Now that I had proof of success, suddenly they cared. Year 3 was when I stopped being afraid. I opened a second location across town. Bigger space, full kitchen, expanded menu. I hired a manager for the first location so I could focus on growth strategy. Revenue hit $40,000 a month across both locations. I wasn't rich, but I was stable. More than stable. I was thriving. I bought a newer car. Not luxury, but reliable. I moved into a 1-bedroom apartment by myself. I took my first vacation in 4 years. The business had become something real. Something sustainable. My father's prediction of failure in 6 months felt like a distant memory. I attended a regional small business conference and met other entrepreneurs building similar businesses. We exchanged strategies, supported each other, celebrated wins. One evening, I sat in the second location after closing, looking at the empty tables and the gleaming espresso machine. For years ago, this had been impossible. A joke, a fantasy. Now it was paying me more than my old marketing job ever did, and I'd built it entirely on my own. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Alex? It's Tyler. Hey, I said cautiously. What's up? Tyler's voice sounded different. Strained. I wanted to. I don't know. Check in. See how you're doing. I'm good, I said. Busy but good. A long pause. I saw you opened a second location. That's impressive. Thanks. Another pause. Uncomfortable. Listen, he said finally. Things have been rough lately. My company did layoffs last month. Finance sector is struggling. I didn't say anything. They cut 40% of staff. I made it through, but my salary got reduced by 30%. And my condo. He trailed off. I waited. The mortgage is killing me. I stretched to buy it, you know? Thought my income was secure. But now, I still didn't speak. Anyway, he continued quickly. I just wanted to say congratulations on your success. You clearly knew something we didn't. The conversation ended shortly after. I sat in the empty cafe processing what I'd just heard. Tyler was struggling. The secure career path was crumbling. And my fantasy was sustaining 2 locations and 8 employees. The universe had a sense of irony. 3 months later, the economy took a harder hit. Stock market volatility, corporate restructuring, financial sector collapse. My father called for the first time in 2 years. Alex, he said, his voice tight. I need to talk to you about something. We met for coffee, not at my cafe, at a corporate chain he'd always preferred. He looked older, tired. My investment portfolio took a significant hit, he said without preamble. Some aggressive positions that didn't work out. I'm down about 40%. I sipped my mediocre coffee and waited. Your mother and I might need to adjust our retirement timeline, possibly sell the house and downsize. I'm sorry, I said, and I meant it. He cleared his throat. How's the business doing? Good, I said carefully. Really good, actually. Revenue. About $50,000 a month across both locations. His eyes widened slightly. That's more than I expected. We sat in silence. I was wrong, he said finally. About your business. About your chances. I thought I was protecting you, but I was just projecting my own fear. It was the closest thing to an apology I'd ever heard from him. I appreciate that, I said. He nodded. Then he left. 2 weeks after that conversation, my mother called. Would you have time to visit, she asked. Your father and I would like to talk to you about something. I drove to their house on Sunday afternoon. Tyler was there. So was Melissa. A family meeting. They sat in the living room looking uncomfortable, like they were about to ask for something they didn't want to ask for. My mother offered coffee. I accepted. When she returned, my father spoke. We've been discussing our financial situation. As you know, things have been challenging lately. I nodded. Tyler's salary reduction. My investment losses. The mortgage on this house is more than we anticipated for retirement. Melissa stared at her lap. We were thinking, my mother continued gently, since you're doing so well with the business, maybe you could offer some guidance, some advice on financial management. That wasn't what they wanted to ask. I could tell. I'm happy to share what I know, I said. My father shifted. We were also wondering if you might consider a small family loan, just temporary, to help bridge the gap until things stabilize. There it was. The silence stretched for several seconds. I looked at each of them. My father, who'd predicted my failure with certainty. Tyler, who'd mocked my little hobby. Melissa, who'd laughed at my ambition. My mother, who'd called it a fantasy. For years ago, they'd sat around a different table and humiliated me for this exact business. Now they wanted to profit from it. How much are we talking about? I asked calmly. My father hesitated. 25,000 would stabilize things significantly. I took a slow breath. I appreciate you being direct, I said, but I have a policy. I don't mix family and finances. My father's face tightened. This is different. We're not asking for charity. We pay you back with interest. I understand, I said, but my answer is still no. Tyler leaned forward. Come on, Alex. Family helps family. I looked at him directly. Where was that philosophy 4 years ago when I was starting out? When I could have used support or encouragement or even just basic respect? He looked away. My mother tried a gentler approach. We supported you your entire childhood, paid for your education, gave you everything. Stop, I said quietly. Support isn't humiliation disguised as concern. My father's voice rose slightly. So you're just going to let us struggle? After everything we've done for you? I'm not letting you do anything, I said. You're capable adults who made financial decisions. Those decisions have consequences. We made sacrifices for you, my mother said, her voice breaking slightly. And I'm grateful for that, I said honestly. But gratitude doesn't mean I'm obligated to fund your lifestyle or bail you out of bad investments. Melissa spoke for the first time. This is really cold, Alex. I looked at her. Is it? Or is it just a boundary you're not used to me having? Tyler tried a different approach. His tone shifted, became almost admiring. Look, you've built something impressive. You clearly have business sense. We're just asking you to share that success with the people who raised you. I'm sharing my success with my employees, I said. I'm paying them fair wages. I'm building something sustainable. That's where my money goes. I stood up. I'm not saying this to be cruel, I said, but I can't be your safety net. You have options. You can downsize. You can adjust spending. You can rebuild. But you can't use me as an ATM. My father stood as well. So that's it? We're just supposed to figure it out on our own. Yes, I said simply. I drove home feeling lighter than I had in years. Not because I'd hurt them, but because I'd held a boundary I didn't know I was capable of holding. 4 years ago, I would have crumbled under their disappointment. I would have given them the money just to avoid conflict. But I'd built something, not just a business, but a sense of self-worth that didn't depend on their approval. My phone started buzzing almost immediately. Text from Tyler, you're making a mistake. Text from Melissa, family comes first. Text from my aunt, I heard what happened. Very disappointed in you. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I drove to my second location and walked through the quiet space. This was real, built with my own hands, my own risk, my own vision, and I didn't owe anyone access to it. The next morning, I met with my accountant. I want to create a scholarship fund, I said, for young entrepreneurs who don't have family support. $5,000 a year to help someone start their first business. My accountant smiled. That's generous. It's necessary, I said. Not everyone has people who believe in them. I signed the paperwork that afternoon. Word spread through the family quickly. Some relatives called me selfish, ungrateful, cold. Others stayed silent, which felt like judgment by omission. A few, surprisingly, reached out privately to say they understood. My cousin Hannah texted, "Good for you for setting boundaries. They would have drained you dry." My uncle Marcus called, "Your dad made bad bets. That's not your responsibility to fix." But most of the family sided with my parents. I was painted as the villain in their story, the successful child who abandoned family in their time of need. I didn't defend myself publicly. I just kept working. Revenue continued growing. Both locations stayed busy. Customer loyalty remained strong. I started getting inquiries about franchising, about opening more locations, about selling the business to a larger company. I wasn't ready for any of that yet, but it felt good to have options. One evening, I received an email from a young woman who'd found my story through the local newspaper article. "Your cafe inspired me to pursue my own dream," she wrote. "I'm opening a bakery next month. Thank you for showing it's possible." I responded immediately, offering to meet for coffee and share what I'd learned. We met the following week. I gave her advice about suppliers, about marketing, about managing cash flow. "My family thinks I'm crazy," she admitted. "Mine did too," I said. "Build it anyway." 6 months passed. My parents sold their house and moved to a smaller condo. My father took a part-time consulting job. Tyler moved to a cheaper apartment. They adjusted. They figured it out. Without my money, I didn't feel vindicated. I felt relieved, because if I'd given them the loan, it wouldn't have stopped there. It would have been the first of many requests. a pattern of dependency that would have drained both my business and my peace. My mother called one evening. "I wanted to let you know we're settled in the new place," she said. Her voice was quieter than usual. "It's smaller, but it's manageable." "I'm glad," I said. A pause. "You were right," she said softly. "We needed to make changes. We were living beyond our means." "It's not about being right," I said. "It's about everyone being responsible for their own choices." "I know," she said, "but it was still hard to hear from you." We talked for 30 minutes. Not about money, just about life. It was the most honest conversation we'd had in years. When we hung up, I felt something shift. Not reconciliation exactly, but understanding. The holidays arrived. Usually, my family gathered at my parents' house. Big dinner. All the relatives. Forced conversation and underlying tension. This year, my mother called with a different plan. "We're doing something smaller," she said. "Just immediate family. No pressure." I almost declined. The wounds were still fresh, but something in her voice made me reconsider. "Okay," I said. "I'll come." The dinner was at their new condo. Much smaller space. Simpler meal. Tyler was there with his girlfriend. Melissa had brought her new boyfriend. My parents looked more relaxed than I'd seen them in years. There was no mention of money. No talk of the loan I'd refused. No awkward tension. Just dinner. At one point, my father raised his glass. "I want to say something," he began. Everyone looked at him. "For years ago, I told Alex the business would fail. I was wrong. Not just about the business, but about Alex's ability to build something meaningful." He looked at me directly. "I'm proud of what you've accomplished, and I'm sorry for not supporting you when you needed it most." The room was silent. I felt tears threatening but held them back. "Thank you," I said quietly. It wasn't complete forgiveness. Years of hurt don't dissolve with one apology. But it was a start. After dinner, Tyler pulled me aside. "Can we talk for a minute?" he asked. We stepped out onto the small balcony. "I owe you an apology," he said without preamble. "I was a jerk about your business. I mocked you because I was jealous." I didn't say anything. "I thought I had everything figured out," he continued. "The right job, the right path. But when I got laid off, I realized how fragile it all was. Meanwhile, you built something that's actually stable." "It wasn't stable at first," I said. "I nearly failed a dozen times." "But you didn't," he said, "because you were willing to risk it. I never had that courage." We stood in silence for a moment. "I don't need you to loan me money," he said. "I just wanted to say I was wrong. And I'm sorry." I nodded. "I appreciate that." "Are we okay?" he asked. "We're getting there," I said honestly. That was the truth. Forgiveness wasn't instant, but it was possible. When I left that evening, I didn't feel angry anymore. I just felt free. Year 5 brought unexpected growth. A regional coffee chain approached me about acquisition. They wanted to buy both locations and expand the brand. The offer was substantial, enough to retire early if I wanted. I considered it for 3 weeks, then declined, not because the money wasn't good, but because the business had become more than income. It was community. It was purpose. I couldn't sell that. Instead, I opened a 3rd location. This one focused on training young entrepreneurs. Half cafe, half co-working space. People could rent desk space affordably, attend free workshops on business basics, learn from others building their own dreams. The scholarship fund I'd created had helped 4 young business owners launch their ventures. One of them, the baker I'd mentored, was now thriving with her own shop across town. This was wealth that couldn't be measured in dollars. My family noticed the changes. My mother visited the 3rd location and walked through quietly. "You built something special," she said. "I had to," I replied. "No one was going to build it for me." She nodded. "I understand that now." The cafe became a local fixture. Regular customers, community events, a place people genuinely loved. Revenue stabilized at $70,000 a month across 3 locations. I wasn't getting rich, but I was comfortable. More importantly, I was fulfilled. I hired 15 employees total, paid them above market rate, offered benefits I wished I'd had when I was working for someone else. Several told me the job changed their lives, gave them stability, hope, opportunity. That mattered more than profit margins. One afternoon, a young man came in nervously. I'm thinking about starting a business, he said. But my family thinks it's stupid. I smiled. Tell me about it. We talked for an hour. I shared my story, gave him practical advice. Build it anyway, I told him. Their doubt doesn't determine your outcome. He left energized. 3 months later, he sent me a photo of his grand opening. A small tech repair shop. You were right, his message said. Thank you. This was the real reward. Not proving my family wrong, but helping others believe in themselves the way no one had believed in me. My relationship with my family continued evolving. We were close like some families, but we were honest. Tyler and I met for coffee monthly. Real coffee at my cafe now. He'd started his own side business. Financial consulting. Small clients. You inspired me, he admitted. I realized I didn't want to work for someone else forever. Melissa was considering going back to school. I wasted years doing nothing, she said. I'm tired of being dependent. My parents downsized further and seemed happier. Less stressed about appearances. They visited the cafe occasionally. Never asked for money again. One Sunday, my father came in alone. Can we talk? He asked. We sat in a quiet corner. I've been thinking about that dinner 4 years ago, he said. When you told us about the business and we all laughed. I waited. I was terrified, he continued. Not of your failure, of your success. Because if you succeeded doing something risky, it meant I'd been wrong about everything I'd taught you. About playing it safe? I asked. Yes, he said. About stability over passion. About security over purpose. I built my entire life on that philosophy. It works for some people, I said. But not for you, he replied. And that's okay. The business continued growing, but I became more selective about expansion. Quality over quantity. Sustainability over growth. I turned down franchise offers, rejected investor proposals that wanted to change the core mission. This wasn't about building an empire. It was about building something meaningful. The scholarship fund expanded, $10,000 a year now, helping 2 young entrepreneurs annually. I started speaking at high schools and community colleges, sharing my story, encouraging students who felt stuck. Your family might not understand, I'd tell them. That's okay. Build it anyway. After one speech, a teacher approached me. You have no idea how many students need to hear that, she said. Most of them come from families that don't believe in anything beyond traditional careers. I thought about my own journey, the mockery, the doubt, the loneliness of building something no one supported. I know exactly what they need to hear, I said, because I was them. This became my secondary mission, not just building businesses, but building belief in others, in myself, in the possibility that you could succeed without permission. Year 6 brought full circle moments. The local Chamber of Commerce asked me to speak at their annual awards dinner. My entire family attended, not because I asked them to, but because they wanted to. I stood at the podium and told my story honestly. 6 years ago, my family gathered around a table and laughed at my business plan. They predicted failure. They called it a fantasy. I saw my father shift in his seat. They weren't being cruel, I continued. They were being afraid. Fear makes us protect what we know, even when what we know isn't working. I paused, but I built it anyway, not to prove them wrong, but to prove to myself I could. The room applauded. After the speech, my family approached. That was brave, my mother said quietly. Telling the truth like that. It's the only story worth telling, I replied. Tyler hugged me. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of me too, I said. And I meant it. Not in an arrogant way. Just in a peaceful acknowledgement that I'd done something hard and done it well. The real wealth wasn't the revenue. It was the peace. Waking up without dread. Working on something I loved. Building community instead of just chasing profit. I still worked long hours. Still faced challenges. Still had months where expenses exceeded revenue. But I wasn't small anymore. Wasn't shrinking myself to fit someone else's expectations. I'd built a life that was mine, on my terms, with my values, and no one could take that from me. The cafe had become more than a business. It was proof that you could succeed without permission, that you could build something meaningful even when everyone doubted. That boundaries weren't selfish. They were survival. I thought back to that Sunday dinner 6 years ago. the mockery, the humiliation, the pain. And I realized something. I didn't need revenge. I just needed to keep building. Success wasn't proving them wrong. It was building something so solid their doubt couldn't shake it. And when they came back asking for money, I didn't raise my voice. I raised my standards. They laughed at a coffee shop. But what I'd built was bigger than that. I'd built proof that dreams backed by discipline become reality. That mockery from people who never tried means nothing. That you don't need everyone's support to succeed. Just your own. The cafe wasn't my only achievement. It was the foundation for everything else. The scholarship fund, the mentorship, the community space, the belief I could now share with others. Fire, when protected and fed properly, doesn't just survive. It grows. I didn't need my family's approval anymore. I had my own. And when they finally offered respect instead of mockery, I accepted it gracefully, without bitterness, because resentment is just another cage. Success isn't about making people who doubted you feel bad. It's about building something so meaningful that their opinions stop mattering. And when the same people who mocked your dream ask to profit from it, you don't gloat. You don't give in. You simply hold your boundaries and keep building. Because the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's living well, on your own terms, with standards they can't meet, and peace they can't disturb.